And you know, the thing that I want to convey to my audience, and the message that I want to deliver today is, how do you identify what separates the good guys from the bad guys, and how do you know you're dealing with a good agent? We were talking about, you know, having systems in place just to answer the phone when you're out of the office with a client. Maybe you're taking a client to look at houses. Maybe you're going on a listing appointment. As a realtor, you know, what system do you have in place? And you know, have just the fact that they have systems in place tells me that they are a step above the rest. And guys, I want to thank you again for coming into the studio. I want you to dive into your presentation and what makes your system unique. What do you guys do that's special? I want my audience to understand what you guys do. Let's start with that presentation and dive into that.
Well, sure. The you know, one of the things that I think is, again, you know, I still laugh. It's laughable that we're actually talking about a real estate agent not even having a system to answer the phone. I mean, are you kidding me? Really?
Right.
That's how bad it is in the industry, and for us to have to make a point of that, it's just you know, it's just sad, you know. But you know, getting into the system, really, it's about the benefit to the client. What is it that you know that you can do, or that we can do to help a client sell their home for the most amount of money in the marketplace with the least amount of hassle? And when you do the math, as you know, Sean, it's you know more than 50% of the homes that go on the market fail to sell. So when it comes down to hiring, you know, a professional,
50%?
more than 50%,
more than 50.
51.1.
You know, that makes sense because that lines up with the number that more than 50% of the agents didn't
sell
anything. I mean, that makes sense that
Yeah.
your chances of coming across a bad agent are greater than finding one
Yeah.
that's a good agent.
Yeah, it's like flip a coin, right?
Right.
But you know, when you're, you know, and it comes down to, you know, certified expert advisor. It means a lot more than just, you know, saying, oh, you know, we're certified expert advisors. Because when it comes down to it, it's the advice that we give that's ultimately going to determine whether or not we're successful
That's
or not
right.
selling your home.
That's right.
And if you only sell a handful of homes, 5 as the average is, you're probably, the advice that you give may not be in the best interest of your client. I mean, you need to, you know, put food on the table at the end of the day.
Well, that's definitely something that we talk about. And desperation, when it comes to money, desperation plays such a huge role in someone's life. If your only source of income is real estate and you've only sold, you know, 3 or 4 houses for the year, you are going to give bad advice because you're struggling and you've got to get to that next paycheck. So, you know, jump in, Mike.
Well, one of the things that I think one of the best things that Jay does, as far as the question he always asks, is he always tries to find out from his home sellers, what's your target date? And so since we help agents across the country, I think that that's brilliant, because ultimately, how can you really tell somebody, give them advice? Your advice should be elastic to their goals, right? And so, yeah, so if their goals are to sell faster and money's not important. I had a client that, you know, his wife had been through cancer before. They had sold a house, as a result, downsized, and he had promised her that they would never list their house again because they just had such a miserable experience.
Right.
So literally, he wanted somebody that was going to sell his house and sell it fast, but he didn't really. He was responding to all those ads out there that like buy my home, buy my home. So I went out there and you know, I was purchasing lead from a company that sold leads back to the real estate community. And he was looking for someone to buy my home. I tried to convince him that he could make more money by listing. He said, you got to understand, I'm not listing my home. I want someone to buy it. The house was worth like $279. He was willing to take $200. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be able to understand what your client's goals are. And that's why, you know, the law of being an expert advisor is that you have to truly, you have to be willing to have the hard conversations up front. You need to know why someone's wanting to sell. You need to determine their dates, their financial goals. You need to really manage their expectations. A person, you know, what I always say to people when they want to get a price reduction, and this is kind of important, but the principles in which a price reduction is required needs to make sense before a price reduction is needed. So when I meet with the home seller, I say, Mr. and Mrs. Home Seller, if we're below par on showings, if we're not getting more because you know your first showing is online. So if we don't get these set of things, then it's going to be my goal to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm willing to have that conversation on the front end. So if I call them in 31 days and they've had 16 showings, an average price home in their market, you know, in their community is basically half of that, then I can at least let them know, hey, listen, you remember back when we talked, this is what we're going to need to do. And I think someone said when a plane takes off, it has like 90 course corrections before it gets to its destination. When you're selling a home, it's not an event, it's a process, and you need someone to advise you through that process.
It's you know, we've talked about it before. We talked about it last week. It's telling them what the seller what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And that's really, being an advisor is finding out what is plan A, okay,
That's
and
right.
why,
That's right.
and what is plan B. God forbid it doesn't sell, what is plan B? Because so many of our clients will end up becoming a landlord, not wanting to be a landlord, or they'll be in a situation where they're not able to accomplish their goal or take advantage of an opportunity.
Right.
Or they, in this market, it could mean foreclosure. The advice that you give is the most critical, and you really have to have someone that understands real estate and has the experience and is doing the deals. If you're not doing the deals in today's market, how can you really, advise someone? You really got to know, what's going on in the marketplace. It is important.
Hey, Jay, this is Willie Lambright. I finally got through the traffic today, man. Good seeing you guys in studio. Great conversation leading up to here. I got a question for you, man. I heard the other day on a show that there's 6 selling points when working through a transaction on a property. It was so funny. When I heard that, I really piped up and started listening to that particular station. You know what the number one thing was?
What's that?
Convincing yourself to sell the property.
Yeah.
So selling, there's the first step. Everything you do, for example, convincing yourself, selling yourself to sell the property.
Yeah.
Convincing the lender to lend you the money.
Mm-hmm.
Convincing the realtor to get on board with you. I mean, it's all those good things that come about. So I think what you're saying is very, very, very important. Is there's a process, 90 correction steps when a plane takes off.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that people, when considering selling a piece of property, be educated, be in the know.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do, right, Sean?
Yeah, and Mike, you said having that tougher. Jay, you said having the tough conversation with them. To me, that sets apart the amateurs from the professionals. That sets apart the amateurs from the certified expert advisors like you guys, and being able to set realistic expectations with your clients. That's where your knowledge comes into play. That's where your passion comes through for real estate.
And I think one of the things and obviously Jay got me into real estate. He was number 2 in the world selling 500 plus homes, and I don't know how he was doing it. And he really, he caused me to just have a passion for real estate, because a lot of the things that he understands through going through so many transactions is, I think one of the things that really, I guess it would be chapped your hide, was agents using CMAs. And I remember back, one of the things that you started telling people was the death of the CMA.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to understand.
If you're home, and this is gonna really, it's gonna piss a few people off. Pardon my French, but it is what it is. So, if your agent shows up to your house, and they have a pre-populated CMA in their hand, and that's how they
explain what a CMA is real quick.
Every agent does a CMA. We don't do a CMA because a CMA is a comparative market analysis, and it's funny because again, you're looking at an industry, and when you look at the big picture, what they sell, the products that they sell in the industry, they sell you tools to use. Well, every real estate agent does a CMA, and back 10, 12 years ago, Mike and I used to do CMAs too, because we didn't know any better. But at the end of the day, the CMA is probably the most archaic tool you could use to determine how to position a home in today's market. We can go backwards and look at home sales 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 12 months ago, and find all kinds of data. I mean, I can show you sales that are low, high, whatever you want to see. I can make it whatever you want to see, but it does not determine what you can do to position the home to attract the highest possible offer in the marketplace today. So if you're determining that value, it's definitely, by a CMA, you're definitely, you got the wrong person in your house.
Yeah, Jay, I got to come to break now real quickly. When we come back, I want to talk more